Hey team, welcome back to another incredible episode of the Intentional Agribusiness Leader Podcast. This is your host, Mark Jewell, and today I am joined by Sean Vanslyke. He's the CEO of SEMO Electric Cooperative. And so this is a little bit different angle than some of y'all are used to. Am I talking about by ag retailers and ag manufacturers? But there is a correlation that I'm sure we'll get to in a little bit. But Sean, thanks for joining me, man.
Thank you for having us. It's great that I get to represent Southeast Missouri and the Boot Hill because the farming here is large and big here in the Boot Hill. As you know, you've traveled down here, and we're so diverse down here that people don't realize how many different crops we actually raise in this area.
Yeah, it's a fantastic diversity in production down that way. So, Sean, let's kick it off. You get the same opening question that everybody gets. What does it mean for you to be intentional?
To make today better than yesterday. And I know it's really short, but I think that's what intentionality is about, is trying to do something better today than I did yesterday. But I think more importantly, it's about what I can do for other people at this point in my life. It's about how I make other people's lives better, because at some point, at my age and my experience now and being a manager and being a leader, I have more fun seeing people do what they think they couldn't do or what they thought was impossible. I think that for me is what intentionality is about. And part of that is just making today better than yesterday.
I like that. I really like that. Did I make today better than yesterday? How do we improve? Did we improve? And actually taking the time to slow down and think about what that would look like. Not just letting it be lip service is really good. So good. Well, talk to us a little bit about your business, your company, and what you guys do. I thought when I saw you pop on my roster, I was like, okay, that's interesting. Zach set me up with an electric cooperative, and I grew up in a rural area in Minnesota, and we certainly had an electric cooperative that served us as well. So, but I don't know until you and I were talking here 5 minutes ago that I understood how it all worked. So this is fascinating. Tell us a little bit about SEMO Electric Co-op and your role there as the CEO.
Yeah, a lot of your listeners or your watchers, viewers are going to understand what electric cooperative is, but there's 900 of them across the United States, serving almost 42 million people. And when you think about that, that's a lot of people. It's a lot of families. It's a lot of farms, homes, and businesses. In our area, in the Boot Hill down here, we serve 5 different counties. Down here, we also provide broadband services to those individuals and farms and homes as well. And so we provide electricity service, we provide fiber fast broadband, and like many of your co-op listeners, co-op families, whether it's in a grain co-op, a livestock co-op, if we have profits, we give it back to our members. And we just celebrated giving back over $20 million since 1995 back to our members. And that's a big number, because that money gets rolled right back into the local economy. Yeah. And now with our broadband business that we have, we're seeing growth that we haven't seen in a long time, because people want to stay in our area, but they've got to compete on the world stage. So with fiber broadband, they're able to do that.
Wow, fantastic. I love it, man. This is super, super interesting. I think we often just take for granted how these types of resources, show up in our life. I mean, I know I pay the electric bill to Duke Energy every month, but like what does that really mean? How, what else is getting contributed into that? So we don't often take time to sit back and think about that. I'm also very interested on the people side of your business and how, being in a rural area, do you face the same challenges that a lot of our customers face in terms of talent attraction, retention, and what does that look like for you guys?
Yeah, I think we face the same thing. And prior to coming here, I've been here at this co-op for 12, 13 years now. Prior to that, I was at a large investor-owned utility like Duke Energy, similar to that. So, we had, 10,000 employees, and we had 2 million meters or more than that at this point. I've lost track. Now I'm in a smaller, zone here with our staff here, or what we call Team SEMO. That's the employees of SEMO Electric and Go SEMO Fiber. It's smaller, but the same challenges are there. It's because people are people, and people have families, and families have issues. Some of them are joyful, and some of them are sad. We're fighting some right now. We've got some folks with, one individual, their spouse is terminal with some cancer. Another one just found out that the spouse has ALS. But on the other hand, we have a baby due tomorrow. We've got another baby due in a couple of weeks. We've got a marriage coming up. We've got 2 grandchildren, first-time grandparents coming up in October. So you have to balance that. And I think a lot of times as leaders, we forget that people come to work to make a living, to provide for their family. And we forget that sometimes they come to work to get away from their family, but they also come to work to provide for their family. And I think as leaders, it's really essential that we don't lose track of that, that we remember we remember our people's why.
Yeah. Where does that, I mean, I'm impressed with the amount of details that you know about what's going on with the people as you're citing the sicknesses and the marriages and the births and all the, grandbabies and things that are coming up. So where does that come from for you? Is it just something that you've kind of just been interested in people your whole life? Have you learned that along the way as a leader? I'm curious, where does that desire to know those things come from?
It's a great question, and I say that not blindly, but it's a tough question because you didn't tell me you were going to ask that one. But I think when you go back and think about it, it probably comes from my childhood. I had a rough childhood with going through some different things, and it was just tough. That first 10 years of my life, the second 10 years of my life was better but tough. But as I've gotten older, I found a camera one time in my freshman year of college, and I dropped out of college. It's a long story, but dropped out of college. But I learned how to highlight other people. I learned how to use a camera, and it was all about a girl at the time, if you can believe that. I'm trying to get through college, but I met somebody and learned how to use the camera, started taking pictures of people. And now today with an iPhone, it's so much easier. But I like to highlight people in our monthly magazine and our newsletters that we do. And I get to know people that way. But I think it comes from the root cause of having empathy, because what I went through, I tend to I'm pretty open, pretty transparent, and I have empathy for people. Yeah. And I'll give you a lot of space to show me I shouldn't trust you or I shouldn't get to know you very well. But I spend a lot of time with our people here, with our team. And whether I was at the larger place or the smaller place, to me, it doesn't matter. You've got to get to know people, because to get things done and to succeed, you've got to have a team around you that's dedicated.
Yeah. The reason I added the question there, Sean, is I've done almost 90 of these interviews in the last year. And, I don't know if I've had anybody who's come on and rattled off top of mind without looking at notes, like here's a bunch of things that are going on with the people. And then to make the point, that we need to remember as leaders, as intentional leaders, that, our people, because we get frustrated, leaders get frustrated with their people. People can be frustrating. Right. Yes. And so when we think about where all this friction comes from, it's easier when we're caught up in that friction, it can be very easy to lose sight of what generates that real momentum. People are coming to work to provide for their families. And that's important to remember, and I think that does allow us, hopefully, at least it makes me want to have more empathy, towards what people are going through. So
right, because you've been through your own life challenges, Mark. I mean, we talked a little bit about that, and you've got 6 children and wife. I mean, you understand that there's going to be challenges. There are going to be times that you've got to show up for people because they're dependent on you. Yeah. And last week or the week before, it just took the day to drive to a hospital to visit somebody. And is it the best use of 6, 7, 8 hours to drive to a hospital and come back? Yes, it is in that case, because I can do my work at night. I can talk on the phone in my truck. I can do a lot of things that I need to do. But you can't, if you don't show up today, you may not be able to show up tomorrow for them. So you've got to take those opportunities.
Well put. Well, let's talk a little bit about culture. I do believe, as I say in my question a lot, it's a nice buzzword. A lot of people talk about it. I don't think enough people put teeth into it and an actual intention behind it. So, just curious for you, what do you believe is most important when it comes to building intentional culture?
I encourage people to be missed and not needed. So when you think about culture building, I want you to be missed, Mark. I don't want you to be needed in our organization. I want you, when you go away, people say, boy, when Mark was here, we used to do this. And when Mark was here, we did these sort of things to help people. But, if I need Mark to sign the check, if I need Mark to unlock the door, if I need Mark to do this, I'm probably not being very intentional with our culture. And I think the word culture gets way overused today because people have different definitions. Yeah. And I think a good culture, if you want to explain that, is done by the actions that occur every day. It's not by some magical thing that everybody takes one pill or you put some pixie dust in the air. It's about the things that we do over and over and over. And
Yeah.
You know, in our case, there's 6 principles that on the first day that you're hired here, you hear these 6 things from me. You get a journal from me, and
Mm-hmm.
you know it starts with be early and smile, act safe, move with purpose, don't gossip, and give thanks. Those 6 things, and we have a simple yellow card, Mark. I'll hold it up
That's
here, but
cool. Yeah.
you know there's 6 things, and after managing now for 30 some years since I was age 22 and I'm 57 today, it comes down to these 6 things. And if you can do
Wow.
these 6 things, you can probably keep your job here and probably do rather well over time.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you hold that up? I want to read those
Yeah,
off so
yeah,
people that
yeah, yeah.
obviously don't watch this on YouTube can hear it. So number 1 is be early. Number 2 is smile. Number 3 is act safely. Number 4, live with purpose. Move with purpose. Number 5, don't gossip. And number 6 is give thanks. Those are Sean's 6 tips for success. I love it.
Yeah, it's just something that boils down, right? And when we meet with young kids, we have a program here where we'll bring in the high school students of our staff members, and we actually put them through an interview. We do the share method, if people are familiar with that, but the share, and you know the situation, the action, let's see. See, we're talking too fast today, but the situation, the hindrance, the action, the result, and the evaluation. And we bring the kids in and we do the interview. And if they don't come in and work the room and shake hands with the 5 or 6 people sitting around, I walk them back out and we start all over again. And the parent's able to sit in there, but they can't ad lib and say, hey, you know, Summer, tell the staff about, you know, tell them about the story you did here. They get to sit there as if they're on the interview panel. But we teach these young kids because 80% of success is showing up. And I know people say that over and over, but boy, some days it's hard to show up. It's hard to get people to show up. And so we just boil it down to these simple things because I think if you do them repetitively, you know, over and over and over, everything's going to be fine.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. Love it. Well, over the course of your career, Sean, what has been the biggest or one of the biggest hurdles that you've had to overcome?
I think self-doubt, if you just want to, you know, the imposter syndrome, right? From a personal standpoint, from a professional standpoint, when I first got here, we had a pride problem. I didn't quite understand what was going on, but as I dug into it, I understand that we had some theft going on. And one day I had to let about 60% of we've got 2 offices, but I had to let 60% of one group go in one day. And I won't get into too many details, but that was a tough day because the community was watching, the staff was watching, the cooperative world was watching. But it was the right thing. And sometimes as a leader, the best thing and the right thing don't always line up. And
Right.
It was tough. It was hard. We've been through a lot of other things in my life with you know, I've been through 2 Black Fridays or 2 Black Mondays, layoff days, if you want, where there was massive layoffs in the organization. And I was blessed to make it through both of them. To watch some of your best coworkers or your best friends, if you will, best friends at work, to have to leave, right? To move on, and you got to stay. And those are difficult moments. And as a leader, I never want to go through those times if I can prevent them. And you know, I see the economy is getting a little choppy right now. I'm not sure. Nobody knows where we're going. Nobody can figure out. Main Street don't match Wall Street, and Wall Street don't match Main Street. But those are hard days when you have to let people go, and because they are people and they are trying to make a living. They just made a mistake, and I've made plenty of them when I was younger, and I try to avoid them today. But it's hard. It's hard to miss them all.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, let's pivot on that. What's been one of your biggest wins?
My biggest win, and I think it's just watching people do things they didn't think they could do. And I've seen a lot of people take steps in their career that they thought, you know what, Sean, I never thought I could do that. I never thought I'd have the opportunity. I never thought I was going to get to do that. And I think that started with me, maybe as a young dad at 22, becoming a dad and then becoming a coach, getting to see kids who maybe were typically pigeonholed as a catcher, or if you're in soccer, maybe they're a defensive back, or maybe in football they just played the line, but all of a sudden they get to run the ball, or maybe they get to score a goal, or maybe they get to hit the ball in a different way, and they did it and they didn't think they could do it. Well, that same principle applies to our work environment, but we have to have our eyes open, and we have to have what I call we're always interviewing. And my staff here would say, yeah, Sean says that all the time. We're always interviewing for jobs because you never know who we might meet in the lobby. You never know what a coworker might leave and go do and say, hey, do you want to come to work for me now? I think we're always interviewing. So I think watching people do things they never dreamed about or they didn't think was possible to do it, and it's fun. And watching this young dad, his life's changed this year in many different ways. He got a job promotion, but also he's going to be a new dad. And watching I don't get to see him that often, but every week I got to see him yesterday and check base with him. But it's interesting to watch him because probably by tomorrow or by the time this comes out, he's going to be holding a little baby in his arms, right? And his life's getting ready to change. You didn't expect that right off the bat, but I think the same principles apply in our work environments.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's really cool. Just the other day I got a text message it was actually on a Saturday. I got a text message from one of our clients, and he's an employee of one of our key accounts, and he came through our Thriving Leader program this last year, about 60 days ago, actually. And he made a decision at this Thriving Leader program. He was going to change his health. That was a result that one of his personal decisions coming out of there. And so quit smoking, quit vaping, and sent me and started running. And then he sent me a selfie from the finish line of a Tough Mudder.
Wow, that's big.
Yeah, it's just like
that's big. That's a big leap.
We get held accountable to business results too as a corporate training and coaching company, but those are the things that make me keep wanting to do it.
Yeah, makes you stand up and straighten your jacket out a little bit and say, I can do it again tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's cool. What? Who has been somebody that you've admired in the course of your career that you've looked up to?
I've been blessed to have so many mentors in my life, and it would be embarrassing just to name one of them because I would leave out somebody. But I've just had great role models in my life, but I also have had some bad role models. And so when you sit back and think about who you admire, I admire people who get up every day and push forward. And growing up with my grandparents a little bit on the dairy farm, and then marrying a dairy farmer 36 years ago, I watch people who get up every day and just churn away at that, and they have that grind, they have that grit, and so. But I admire people who just keep pushing forward, despite what happened to them, because a lot of people have had some sour eggs in their life, they've had burnt toast, and they have the reason just to stop, but they don't, and they keep going, and I think they still have self-doubt, but they get up every day and try and. Maybe they sit in the front row so they can be attentive of people, and maybe not in the back row. They're sitting there for a reason. They're trying, right? And so I admire people who just get up and try every day.
Yeah, love it. Great answer. What book or books should people be paying attention to? What has impacted you either recently or over the course of your career?
I have a hard time with that because there's so many books, and if you saw my closet, my family won't let me hardly bring them home anymore. But I use this book every day.
Our Daily Bread,
Our Daily Bread, and I know where your values are and your background and your faith. I read that every day. It's just a small devotional, but probably one of the books that I send more to everybody is probably this one by Andy Andrews, The Noticer.
The Noticer. Okay, that's a new one.
On the first day of employment here at the co-op, there's 3 different books that we read out of, and this is one of them. Okay. And whoever, usually the supervisor will read this one, and it simply says, you can tell a lot about a person from the leaves they drop. You don't have to be around someone a long time to know what life is about. You can just examine the occasional leaf they drop. Believe me, that will tell it all. And you think about the leaves that we drop, right? And we have a thing here when we do interview, we throw a wadded piece of paper on the floor, and we see if the candidate will walk by and pick it up, or if they just kick it out of the way, or they just look at it. But we find out, are they going to match our culture? Are they going to be part of our team? Are they willing to do something that's out there? And you'd be surprised. So people will look at it and think they should do something. They won't do something. Other people will bend over and pick it up and say, here, I'll throw it in your trash can. It's just interesting. But when people get here, we talk about safety starts with cleanliness, and we just because in our business it's hazardous. And I growing up around the dairy farm and seeing my uncle with his, I don't remember now if his leg or his arm right now in the auger. But you don't have to see those things too often to know that they're dangerous. And in our business with electricity, it's a hazardous job. And if we're not watching out for safety first, so there's just a lot of things. But all you got to do is sit back and watch people, and they'll tell you who they are. You don't have to say a word. You can just watch them.
Yeah, fascinating. Fascinating stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Those that are listening to the audio version of this podcast will not get to see the
Yeah, sorry.
orange jacket that you showed up in here today, and I thought, that is so intentional, to show up and kind of just be leading by example and letting that create that conversation. So, what is the some of my Southern friends will think this is a Tennessee Vols thing, and you said it's not.
Yep.
So could you just share a little bit about that and why you've got that unique jacket?
Yeah, I make a joke often when I travel, when I'm blessed to give a keynote speech or I'm up on stage. I like to do something a little bit different. I actually have an orange vest that I wear a lot of times, or I put it on during the presentation. But as a CEO, we're issued a standard blue CEO coat, and I just get so tired of wearing the blue coat. I just hate it. And so I saw this one time, and I won't tell you I only paid $15 for it. And some people would say, it looks like you paid. It's a little too big. I've had it taken in. But it just says a signal because for me, I always start with safety. We're always going to talk about safety. Every meeting we have, we talk about safety. We have a safety message, and to the point that we have to be sure that we're just not doing it and going through the motions. But safety just kind of the orange kind of brightens things up. And in our business, a vest, an orange vest, a yellow vest, it's a sense of pride, and it should be. And if you came to around our co-op, everybody that has a safety vest has their last name on the back of it, just like a football jersey.
Cool.
And so we have built-in accountability there, because if I see you up in a truck, up in a bucket, I get to see your last name on the back of your vest, and so does the public. And so just like a football game on TV, we know who's working, we know who's playing, and I can readily identify people. So, but it is a sense of pride. It's not it's not for getting people in trouble. It's the opposite.
Yeah. Well, I love the intentionality behind that. It creates conversations, and obviously, I mean, within your culture, and really should be within all cultures, but specifically you're around some very dangerous things. Your people are around very dangerous things every day. And so, it needs to be a sense of pride. There needs to be a sense of pride around doing the right things, So, it's fascinating stuff. I love it. That's very, very cool. So what, by the way, I love the book recommendation too. I wanted to just touch back on that because I think the Noticer, just being able to see, noticing little things. I read a book years ago that my dad gave me called The Power of Intention by Wayne Dyer. And this was an early book in my personal development journey. I was probably, early 20s when he sent it to me. Sent it to me along with a copy of a Bible. So it was more a little bit of a new age spiritual along with the Bible in the same box. It's kind of funny. But one of the things that he just talked about there is like just being in relationship with the surroundings, with the planet around you. And like, if you just, and I do that to this day, this has been now 25 years probably since I received that book and read that book. I notice whenever there's a pop bottle laying in the parking lot on my way into the CrossFit gym, and this is something that happened recently. Like it's just natural for me now to stop and pick that thing up. I'm not bragging. It's just become part of who I am. I see a thing and I just stop, and do I pick up all of the things, all of the garbage? No. Like I tried to pick up one the other day and it was a bunch of chocolate still stuck to the ground. I left that one there.
I get in trouble. I get in trouble all the time from my wife. You don't need to pick that one up, honey.
Yeah, you don't need to stop and do it. But I was on my way into the gym and I stopped and I picked up, the crushed pop bottle or whatever it was, and I threw it away on the way into the gym, And my CrossFit team, the CrossFit team, that was there, everybody that was waiting for the class to get started was standing around talking. There's a big window looking at the parking lot. Everybody saw me do it, and you just know, you never know who's watching. So I walk in the gym and there's a round of applause, right? For steward of the day or whatever they called it, it's just kind of funny, but I love to see a world where more people are doing those things, and we should normalize it instead of being judgmental.
Right. And what's great about that is even though you're not maybe a leader, right? Because we get stuck on who's a leader. We're all leaders. And so people watching out that window, when they come in and maybe you're not there that day, or maybe it's a day that you're absent or whatever, you're traveling, they walk in and see that pop bottle. They're more likely now to pick that up and throw it away. And so now suddenly we have a cleaner environment, a cleaner area, and somebody won't trip on that bottle or it'll bust and put somebody's tire out. Yeah. So, but those are the things people don't see, but you just have to do them because they're the right thing.
Yeah. Love it. Good stuff, man. What do you do to keep your energy up? You seem like a pretty focused guy. You got a lot on your plate. How do you keep your energy up?
Well, I'd love to tell you that I'm a big weightlifter and I do all this, but my energy comes from people. And
Mm,
so I love to coach and mentor and guide and teach. I have to be careful I don't preach. And so my team will give me
hmm
the old ear, Sean, you've talked too long now. It's going, but I have a 2 minute sand thing here. So
mm,
everything, and I've trained myself to kind of stay within the 2 minute window. And so when I talk to people, I just try to frame that because people want to talk about themselves more than they want to talk about you.
hmm
And we want, as individuals, as people, we want to tell our story so bad, but most of the time people want us to listen to them. And
mm,
I still have not mastered that at home. I'm still not a great listener. I'm working on it, but I like to provide the solutions and, hey, just do this. But I still haven't mastered listening at home yet. I'm working on it.
Yeah.
But I get my energy from other people, Mark. These types of conversations. What can we
Cool.
do to help you get better?
Yeah. Great. Well, you're in the right role for it.
Yeah.
What I know a lot of people are always looking to get better in terms of being productive,
Mm-hmm.
being busy, and doesn't define being productive. I think, as you and I both know, but sometimes we all get kind of lost in the
Right.
maze of trying to be productive and then ending up busy anyway, but not necessarily getting it all done. So, any tips that you'd share with the listeners for how you maximize productivity?
Yeah, and I have to give a shout out because this morning I met with one of our groups in one of our other offices this morning. A bunch of linemen sitting around the table at 7:30 this morning, and I said, "Hey, I'm getting ready to do this podcast today, and one of the questions is this question." And so I just asked them, and they said, "Well, you got to have a plan. You got to have a plan what you're going to do." And so
Yeah.
we talked a little bit about it, but I went around the table and we all talked about it. But they said you got to have a plan. And in my world, I usually have three things that I want to get done the night before, and I know that's an old lesson. But I'll text myself those three things, or I'm famous for writing notes on all kinds of things. I've got paper here with, an old receipt just here, just scratched up. I better not leave it up there very long because I don't know what's on it. But there's just stuff on there, right? Because our minds are always busy. But if I try to
hmm
pare it down to three things I've got to get done tomorrow, but I
hmm
will tell you, in my environment, in most people's environment, what I thought was going to be an A priority or a B or a C, by 9 o'clock in the morning, the C now has shifted up to an A, and the A has shifted down to a C, or it just got completely put off. But
hmm
you gotta keep listing. As I get older, I noticed in one of your podcasts that you did with your wife, you had a yellow legal pad. I
hmm
have those everywhere. I have notes everywhere.
Yep.
I can't remember everything anymore. I just can't remember it because you're inundated with stuff. Not to mention the cell phone. You're just inundated with stuff, and so
hmm
I keep notes. I'm not a big guy. I'm not a big guy where I put something down and then check it off, after I've done it. But I'll scratch through it. But I see a lot of people write down something they accomplished and then put a check mark to make them feel good about it. So,
Yep. Yep.
everybody has their own skills, but I think having a plan helps.
Yeah, I agree. I believe it was the founder of Strategic Coach. He actually makes the point um, in a book called 10X is easier than 2X. It's about from an entrepreneurial perspective, trying to grow your business. um, he literally says like I only focus on three things a day. Right? There's three things, and I only do those three things. There may be some other ancillary things like little emails, of course, things, but there's three main things each day. Because a lot of us, it's the old, what's the old saying? We always over plan for what we can do in a day, but we
Mm-hmm.
under plan for what we can do in a year,
Yep.
right? And if you really just focus on doing those three things with excellence each day and training your teams to do those three things with
Mm-hmm.
excellence each day, I can already hear the people talking back like, we got more than three things to do.
We got
Right?
three main things. Yeah.
Especially during planting season or
Right.
going into
Yeah.
harvest or whatever the
Right.
case may be. I understand, right? But from an organizational perspective, when you
Mm-hmm.
think about the things that are really that stack and stack and stack and stress you
Yep.
out, often it's because we have too many things. So we got to pick that
Yeah.
pile apart at some point, right? And start parsing through it. So just do 3 a day. That's 15 a week. That's
Amazing.
what 30, 60, 70 a month, depending on how you
Mm-hmm.
get there, right? And then
Yeah.
also I think the other piece is people need to be delegating more. We need to be
Right.
multiplying other people and being
Yep.
comfortable letting go of more things. And a lot of people just make themselves busy
Yep.
because they don't know don't know who to delegate to. So
No, and I felt when I was 22, I found myself as an editor and publisher of a newspaper. I dropped out of college and I took my photography skills, and suddenly I'm an editor and publisher of a newspaper. And the first day, the person that was supposed to train me, at the end of the day, he just left and said, "I'm done. I'm leaving. I won't be back." He was supposed to train me for 2 weeks, and I called my college friends. They came over and bailed me out. And that night, I learned how to put a newspaper together, but I didn't know how to delegate. So suddenly, at 22, I'm a leader. I fire my first person. I don't know how to delegate, and 3 years later, I burned myself out because I
yeah,
couldn't. 100 hours a week wasn't enough. I could not figure it out, and so since that time, you learn how to delegate. There's certain things that you've got to do as a leader. You've got to do them yourself, and you know what those are. I mean, as a person, you know what those things are. They're all different for everybody else. But
sure
when I
thing.
grew up on a dairy farm, though, and my in-laws and dairy farming, they could milk the cow, and we could milk the cows. We could see the milk in the barn, right?
Mm,
We could harvest the corn or put silage up, and I could walk around the silo and pack it in. In my environment today, I can't see a lot of what I do. And I
mm-hmm.
think a lot of leaders struggle with that based on what they did prior. They
Yeah,
can't see what they accomplished because it's hard. And you have to trust, you have to have this internal, whatever that thing is, you've got to have it internally and say, you know what, I got something done today and I'm going to come back and do it better tomorrow.
yeah, really, really well put. I think a lot of people relate to that.
Yeah.
It's good. What for you, Sean, is the biggest thing you want to improve on this year?
I think just being daily, trying to be a better person is something
Mm,
that sounds real wide. But I still struggle with things from my childhood and still struggle with things from my teenage years and my adult years and
mm-hmm.
trying to be a better listener, trying to be a better follower. And I know that's one thing that your wife talks about in her book and on her podcast is to be a
Mm-hmm.
good leader, you got to be a good follower. And my staff would here say, Sean's been working on that for 3 years now. Because I tell them what my goal is, and it's been that same goal for 3 years to be intentional and to learn to be a better follower and encourage them to make the decisions instead of me always making them. So it's a different level of delegation. It's a different level of delegation because in our job we're trying to add value or mitigate risk. There's not much difference. Those are the two things we do every day. We either add value or mitigate risk, and sometimes they overlap on each other. And trying to work through that. So just trying to develop our staff and work on our succession planning. And I do have 12 board of directors that I'm
Mm-hmm.
responsible for. So when we look at safety and succession planning and board relations, stakeholder relations, that's probably my top three things that I do. And just trying to get better every day at those. I've had over 200 and some board meetings because I used to be a school board president in my 30s. And so
Mm,
I've either conducted or been involved with hundreds of board meetings. I've yet to get one perfect. I've never had a perfect board meeting.
mm-hmm.
And I look at perfect games in baseball or an unbeaten team in college football. Man, it's hard to do those things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. How
Yeah.
so the question just popped into my mind because you
Okay.
mentioned the board. So how do you get on the board of a rural electric co-op like yours?
Most of them, when people call me about running for the board here, I said, have you taken time to read our bylaws? Every
Mm-hmm.
organization, every cooperative, whether you're an electricity business or if you're a cooperative, you're going to have a set of bylaws. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's where I encourage people to start because the bylaws kind of outline everything that has to occur. And in some cases, they're different. So I can't just blanketly say this works for everybody. But in our case, you go out and
Mm-hmm.
get some, 50 signatures from actual members, or you get nominated to be on the board. But there's some work required to do that. And I
Mm-hmm.
bring people in that are interested in and just say, here's the deal. This is just not, you just don't come to a board meeting. It's intense. Sometimes our board meetings are 4, 5, 6 hours long because we have
Mm,
two businesses now that we're running. And they can be really intense because we care about each other, but we have some hard talks. But I think that's what makes us special. And,
yeah.
and so when people want to run for the board, they'll call the manager and indicate their interest, or they'll read the bylaws and figure out how to do it on their own.
Mm-hmm.
But each cooperative is going to have a different way to get on the cooperative's board.
Got it. I think it's interesting. Do you notice? I mean, did you have people lining up to get on a board? Do you have to recruit board members in a situation like this? I just think about people from my generation. I'm 43. A lot of us are busy, got young families. We have half a dozen kids in our family.
Right.
A lot of stuff going on. I mean, it's a
Right.
volleyball season right now. We're big in the swing of it, and you think about, man, I got to go to a 5-hour board meeting tonight. I would imagine, recruitment is being tough. I've thought about our HOA board, right? We can go, and spots are opening every year. There's 2 spots that are open to join the HOA board and go represent just, our local community. And I talk to the community members, and I know what everybody's ticked off about. And, and I think, man, I could really do something about that. Right. And at the same time, I got other things going on. I got a business to run. I got a family, all the things. So, I guess the reason I ask, right, if there's somebody out there who's thinking about getting involved, what would you tell them?
I would tell them, well, the same reason I got involved in the school board many years ago, or served in the Kiwanis Club or the Rotary Club. But the school board, I didn't get on the school board because I had a bone to pick. I got on the school board because I wanted to make things better for the children. Not that they were bad, but I wanted to be involved. It's the same reason that many of us coach sports when we're younger as dads. We go out there to this practice, and there's some guy or some lady out there coaching the practice, and the kids are just standing there. And I'm going, come on, right? I can do better. So suddenly we find ourselves in charge. We find ourselves, I've got to bring brownies now, and I've got to organize somebody to do this, and I've got to do that. Well, a board, whether it's a school board or a co-op board or a grain board, livestock board, you've got to be willing to serve, because if you don't show up for the meetings, so my first thing is look at the bylaws, look at how many times they meet, think about your schedule. We have an 18 to 24 month running calendar here at our co-op. My calendar is 18 months out already. I'm booking stuff in 26 now already, if you can believe that, because we have standard meetings that are going to occur. And so there's just this continual circle of meetings, that a cadence that we go through. And so I talk to people like that. But if you really want to get on a board, don't go in with a bone to pick. Go in with the attitude that I can make a bigger impact and help people. Because if you go in with a bone to pick, you're going to find out that you get that bone fixed. And then what are you there for? And you've got 3 more years to serve, or whatever that term might be. So
sure.
I just encourage people to have the right attitude if you're going to look at a board seat.
Good thing. Good, really, really good advice. All right, Sean, last question. Okay. How important is vulnerability in creating an intentional work environment?
I think if you're not open and transparent, and you let people know that you're going to make mistakes and fail, I think if you come in with a pompous attitude and you're just the greatest thing that walked on water, you're going to fail, because people are not going to line up behind you. And I see so many leaders, and I coach a lot of leaders. I had one yesterday who called, and he's 35. He's trying to take the next step up. And we talked for about a half hour last night about what he can do to get better. And I asked him one question. I said, tell me why you want to go to the next level. He said, because I want to do this. And I said, let's rephrase that. Instead of saying, I want to do this, why don't you start out with, I want to make a bigger impact? And so we talked about that last night. And I think there's some young leaders that I get to watch. And they say they want to lead, but they never turn around to see who's behind them. And they just assume that they're back there. And it's like leading. And I'll give you one quick story. A recent story that was shared with me, and I've done the same thing, and I've seen it happen. But we're going to take a group of people to a restaurant. We're going to walk downtown, and I'm going to lead. But we never turn around and look. And when we turn around and look, we've lost a bunch of them because maybe they're slower or maybe they're faster. A good leader probably has assigned somebody to lead the front, and the leader is all the way in the back and will be the last one in the door at the restaurant. And I think those are the things that I try to teach, to answer your question, to be vulnerable, because we're going to make mistakes. We're going to have, I make mistakes all the time. And in a CEO role, as a general manager, every decision that I make, somebody thinks it's a wrong decision. It may not be a lot, but it could be 50%. It could be 100% sometimes. But I have to make decisions that for a reason. And the one thing I learned about school board and executive session, what happens in there stays at home. And my wife and I learned that for 5-6 years when I was the school board president. I can't share things that happen because there's always three sides to the story. And when bad things happen, especially when bad things happen, you're not going to hear, you may only hear one side of that story. You may never hear the truth, and you may never hear my side. So as a leader, you have to be willing to be vulnerable and realize that some days it's just lonely.
Yeah. Sean, you are a wealth of information. Thank you for showing up, being prepared, having everything ready to rock and roll, man. This is a really cool interview. Thanks for doing it.
I appreciate the time, and I appreciate what you're doing to help make other people's lives better. And I hope that people tune in and share, and just keep sharing these things to help each other grow.
Yeah, beautiful. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.